What's up, Chris?
What's up?
This meeting is
Josh?
being recorded.
Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you.
What's up, Rob, Kirch, Samir?
What up, what up?
Good to see you guys. All right.
Samir, how's that LinkedIn content
Good.
going?
Bro, good. We're about to close our second deal today. It's crazy. Like 2 weeks.
Beautiful.
Crushing the LinkedIn content. We love to hear it. Real quick, before we hop in and before I introduce our guest speaker for today, want to hear some wins. What wins do we have from past few days here? I hear, Samir, you got a little deal on the line, it sounds like. But what else? What wins do we have? Don't know how.
Triple the client's engagement with us for 2025. That's awesome. And then I've got a big pitch at 3:00 today.
Let's go. Yeah,
All right, let's go, Brian. Nice.
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive. You were saying because of like the ad spend, right? You guys increased ad spend drastically and essentially tripled the retainer.
And we tripled it from 5K a month to 15K a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've got a 24K a month pitch at 3:00 today. So,
love it,
yeah.
man. I love it. Well, glad you came to scrims this week because you're gonna be nice and sharp for it.
Yeah.
Huge. What else, Chris? You got a win for this week?
Dude, I'm battling thousands of dollars of invoices that aren't being paid.
Okay. So not a dub, but a dub if they're getting cleared.
Yeah, so out of it looks like this week things are actually picked up a lot. Like we got to book calls, we got things coming through. Whereas like the last month with Black Friday and e-commerce, it was like just abysmal. So the win is that there's momentum back in my CRM.
Back in the pipeline. All right, love it.
Yep.
Love it. Got some wind at the back.
Exactly.
Rob Reich, got a win for us this week, brother?
I would say I started with the clean books, and she was able to make me realize, hey, you had a client that a card was expired and you haven't collected since July, so that's fun. I'm on that hunt right now.
Okay. All right, some
Yeah.
revenue there.
Yeah, so that's a nice little bump at the end here. So
The Clean Books crew will make sure you guys are getting paid. So I love that. Good stuff. All right. There's some people still kind of leaking in here, but would love to introduce my friend Andrew today. I'm really excited, guys. Andrew is a newer friend. It's crazy that our paths haven't crossed earlier, Andrew. But I met Andrew a little bit earlier this year and had some great conversations with him on just leadership and growing businesses. And he's doing some really awesome stuff in like the agency world as well. He has an awesome community that he runs with agency owners, and man, like anytime we can get together with people that are like-minded and are sharing a very similar vision. Andrew, I'm so excited we have Joycey joining. She is like a big fan, by the way. It'll be a good time. But anytime you can get together with like-minded people and people that are kind of challenging the status quo and are open to sharing insights across all of their agency experience, I find that it's very powerful, right? That's why we build communities. That's why we, have these workshops every week. So, Andrew, super excited to have you on, man. How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. So glad to be here, and thanks for having me. Super stoked. I got obviously I have a toddler, so I have a chest cold. It's chest cold season, and I'm sitting here in my business casita, my casita. That's dialed in here. I'm a competitive, competitive's generous, but I do race mountain bikes, which is why I got a ridiculous amount of bikes hanging around me and all this stuff in my garage of all my happy place where I do business. So that's what people are always like, are those cleaning supplies? And it's like, yes, they are, because we're in the casita next to all my rides.
Let's go.
And yeah, stoked to be here. So I'm happy to get into it if we'd like to right away.
Yeah, let's hop right in.
Okay, cool. Well, hello, it's good to be with you. Happy Friday to you. I think for those of you that know who I am, some of you may, some of you may not. I'm not a huge celebrity in the space or anything. I think, I've been doing Facebook ads basically since they were invented. And that's really how I made my name. A little like quick backstory, but I used to be a press secretary in Congress, and then we changed the rule to allow members of Congress to use Facebook ads. Uh, Mas o menos, whether that's been good for democracy overall. Anyway, then I launched a paid social agency for Congress. That's how I got into it. So then I went to work for 3Q, a guy named David Rodnitsky, who, if you don't know him, he has the book about selling your agency. He sold his agency 3 times. I think the final time was for maybe $34 million. So he was my original boss at 3Q Digital. And I was the original director of paid social there. So, and I was one of the first 100 people in the world to launch a newsfeed advertisement. Like, they were called dark posts, of course. Many of us probably remember that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I'm getting old now for our space, so that kind of gives you an idea on that. But yeah, so basically, then I built, have had an agency for 12 years, and then about 6 years ago, started to do education with John Loomer. He asked me to build all of his stuff. So if you ever Googled anything nerdy on Facebook, like, probably his blog has come up. So we built and did all the education for John, and then eventually we transitioned to doing our own courses, and then we have a community now that we launched 3.5 years ago called the Foxwell Founders, and it's essentially a community of 70% agency owners, 30% brands that are D2C, DR folks, right? So a lot of you guys are probably in this position, and through that, this community is now 540 people from 30 countries around the world, and we spend about $300 million a month just on Meta. So we're kind of Meta forward spenders, but we talk about Pinterest and Google and TikTok and everything else like CRO that goes into the world that we're in. So yeah, I'd heard about Hydra, and anyway, then I was like in London, or actually I was in Amsterdam, having a beverage with Ollie Hudson, and he's like, yeah, how do you not know about this? And so, because Ollie's in our community as well. And so then as I started asking more people, oh yeah, I know all about this, so anyway, it's nice to be with all of you. And that gives you a little bit of background of who I am. In terms of talking about vulnerability, one of the things that I've done, because of the natural extension of the work that we've done, is work with a lot of agency owners. And a lot of the agency owners that I've done coaching with or I've helped, I've done a lot more coaching in 2024. And previous to this, I did a lot of advising and things with agencies. And I'm kind of like an unknown person behind some of these agencies that a lot of you guys probably know. And I'm not taking credit for that. It's like these are people that came to me with an idea and said, I want to launch an agency, and I've helped them do that. And it's been awesome because you see people realize their dreams. I'm sure being part of this community, you do that as well. One of the things that has really struck me this year in doing a lot of coaching is what we're going to talk about today, which is vulnerability. And I had a presentation, and then I looked at it a bunch this week, and I realized it sucked ass, so I just canned the whole thing. So now we're just going to talk about it. And I think that these things are much more valuable when we can have a conversation too. We're going to talk about vulnerability and empathy as a leader. So let's just start off by talking about the status quo, right? That really I see in agencies. I think that for high performing people, which inevitably many of you are because you're running these organizations, one of the things that happens when you're a high performing person is you think that you should have all the answers, and you think that you should go to the employees that you have, and you should, be able to say, hey, this is exactly what it should be. This is exactly, I got to take off the self-view. This is so distracting watching myself. Is like, oh, I can't because I'm presenting, so it's all good. So it's like, this is exactly what it should be. This is how we should vision this. This is how we should go about it, and you should have all the answers. And many times we lay awake in bed at night ourselves, and we end up becoming, thinking about all of these vulnerabilities that we hold, thinking about all the issues that we hold, but we're not actually being real with the people that we've employed to tell them what's going on. And so at a baseline, if you take nothing else away from this, what I encourage you to think about, and what I encourage you to do with your employees moving forward and yourself, is to be as vulnerable as you possibly can. I'll move over here since my towel fell down on my basita. Is to be as vulnerable as you possibly can be about the things that you have as anxieties, the things that you want to share that you're thinking about. Because as we know, hiring and finding good people is really, really hard to do. And retaining those folks is so challenging, especially if they're multi-talented, especially if they have tons of different talents that they're doing in your organization. One of the biggest things you go up against is them saying, well, I want to do this myself. So how do you keep them around and how do you keep them happy? And one of the ways that you can do that is by sharing what you have and what your vulnerabilities are. Here's what I'm worried about. Here's what I think that we could do better. Here's what I lay up thinking about at night. And essentially, the more that you do this as a leader, the more that you talk about the inner workings of what's happening, the better off you're going to be. And it feels counterintuitive because I think many of us go into these, discussions, and you go into an employee conversation and you want to act like you kind of have the answer, right? You really want to do that. You want to come in and have an authoritative way to go about it, right? Hey, this is what we're doing. This is the plan. And maybe you do have a plan, right? But also kind of understanding and saying, hey, this is the plan as it stands, but this plan is a working document. It's a living document, and it can change. And just that tone and just that way that you approach it is enough to keep people understanding what they're trying to do. Because employees leave for a number of different reasons. One of the main ones they leave for is because they don't understand, one, what they're doing contributes, how it contributes to the overall work that you're doing. And two, they don't understand what the path for their own career looks like. And so I had an agency owner last week. Employee came to him, hey, it's been nuts. I think after Black Friday, I'm done. And he said, hey, this employee's great. I really don't want to lose them. What can I do here? I said, when was the last time you asked them about their career, like what they want to do? And he said, well, I don't have a plan. I never asked them that. I was like, well, if you ask them, what are the things that I can do for you? I don't have a plan now, vulnerably sharing that. But I'm going to come, I want to listen, and I want to work on this with you. And this is something that I haven't been doing a good job of. That's a totally different conversation, right? I think what happens a lot of times, especially in the agency space, and any business really, but especially in the agency space, and I say this as a guy, is that there's a lot of ego that comes with it. That we feel like we singularly should have all the answers. But what I'm trying to say is the more we can have vulnerability in terms of what we're sharing, the better off we're going to be as a leader. So that's essentially my thesis that we work from, right? So let's talk about empathy as well, right? Empathy and vulnerability to some degree go hand in hand. Employees right now, let's just look at the employees in our agencies, they're overwhelmed. Right? Like baseline, they're just overwhelmed. And I think the more that you can vulnerably share how you feel during this period of time and say, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, the better off these people are going to be and the more able they're going to be able to share how they feel. And just by simply saying, I hear you. I hear you. I understand that feeling. That is hard. That's a totally different conversation. Because too often as high performing people, I think we railroad over our own feelings, and therefore we like railroad over our employees' feelings, and people don't feel seen and heard. And this isn't trying to be like 2025 woke agency ownership. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is connecting on the human level with people, because there's all these things that we all have in our heads. There's all these things that we carry in our heads and in our minds and on our, on our bodies and everything. And we just aren't, if the more that we can connect with it and listen to that, because we aren't listening to it, the better off we're going to be. Right. So I think if you turn and say empathetically, this is who we are, this is what we're dealing with, that you're going to be better off. Let's talk about vulnerability as it relates to clients as well, and making you a better leader. People always say like, oh yeah, the best thing I can hear from a leader is I don't know, which is true. And I think that's the tip of the iceberg in terms of vulnerability, in terms of what you can do with clients. I think we focus so much on I know you guys do a crush job of this, of helping you understand building systems to get you inbound leads, right? And one of the things that I see in terms of how people pitch their services is it's a game of minutia. It's a game of inches. Hey, we can do this. We can also tack on this service. We do this better than other people. Here's the people you can talk to for testimonials, and boom, let's close this deal, right? But what I'm saying is that if you go in and people are asking you a question and you say, you share, I feel like we do this service really well, or I feel like we could do this really well. I feel like this other people, they probably have more people on the team, but if you're looking for somebody that is going to work harder than them, then we're the right people for this. That's an example of sharing a vulnerability and a way to emotionally connect with people. And that's going to help you close more deals. So it kind of goes into all of these areas in terms of being a human being with others to help yourself land more business and to help keep employees around. One of the things that I love to do with current clients, and it can also be said in retention, we can talk about like how it can be used in landing clients too. One of the things that also I think about a lot with clients is I start every call, and people always think this is so ridiculous, but I've had agency owners start to do this, and it's crazy, is asking on the call, all right, so let me tell you the numbers, here's what we're going to run through. All right, so what are we anxious about? What are we nervous about? And that's a way to lead with vulnerability and empathy. And then you share what you're feeling anxious about. It's a totally different conversation because these things generally don't surface in the numbers. And ultimately what you're trying to do with a lot of these clients is obviously you're trying to make them more money. You're also trying to give them back more time. You're also trying to understand the complexities that they have in their business that you can help them solve. And so the more that you can, and the more that we can as agency owners be like the hooks in Velcro, the better off we're going to be, right? There's tons of them that hook in. And one of the ways that we can do that more effectively than other people is to ask them, hey, what are you anxious about? And get into that emotional level, sharing vulnerably. I'm nervous about that too. I did see that CVR dropped. Here's what I'm thinking we can do about it. I did see that creative or those creatives, that batch wasn't as good. Here's what I think we can do about it, but I'm nervous about how that's going to perform. I'm going to be honest with you. That's a totally different conversation in terms of being vulnerable and leading that way. And it's the same thing, obviously, with employees as you go forward. So I think setting aside a little bit this idea that we go into these conversations with of not sharing these things is a totally different deal. I have one guy that I coached this year, started coaching him in March. And he had an issue with most of his employees. Like a lot of his employees were leaving because he was giving them a lot of responsibilities and there was burnout. In July of this year, he had a retreat where they all got together, had a retreat, and they talked about a number of different things. And I told him to give his vision to his employees of why he's doing this. This guy used to be homeless. Now this agency is going to, I think, make like $5 million this year. And so he actually, went forth and talked about the vision, and he started crying. He told me later, which is totally, this guy's a New Yorker. Like, he doesn't cry. This is totally uncharacteristic for him. And since then, he's brought on more team members and hasn't churned one. And it's because there's many reasons, but it's because I think he shared his vision vulnerably and had the idea of saying, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. And when people came to him and said, I'm feeling this way or that way, he empathetically listened. And he changed the way that he was operating. So this is a real question, we think a lot about, and I know you guys do because I do too in my own agency, which is like, what services can we offer to make us more money? What are the things that we can do to bring up net profit, to make, retainers higher, et cetera? But what's also going to be something, and so those are all things that we think about. The question that I would, ask if we leave from today is, what's going to set you apart? What are the things that you can set you apart? There's obviously the things that you can always do and go and be with clients in person. That's the thing that sets you apart. You can have a little chit chat at the beginning. That's what sets you apart. But what I encourage you to do is to lead with vulnerability and empathy and take it to a deeper emotional level with your employees so that you have conversations that are going into like sub levels that other people do not get to. And you can teach your employees how to do this too. You can teach your employees how to do this with clients, with you, so that you're coming up with deeper discoveries. There's a lot more that we can go into and get to, but I think ultimately there's so many directions. Another one is like talking about as a leader and planning your employees' goals. What are they trying to do? Okay. A lot of times employees, we're all title obsessed. So, hey, I want to make more money and I want to be the senior director of paid, or I want to be the senior director of Google Ads, or whatever it is. Okay. So listening to what you hear them saying, they're saying, well, I want a bigger raise. I want to make more money and I want to have this bigger title. Okay. I hear you. Help me understand what the vision is for your life in 2 years with this new title and new money and more money versus what you're doing now. What's the difference? What's the delta between those things? And what's the day like? Is it just that you have a nicer car? That might be that could be valid, right? But like helping to understand the deeper level so that you can connect with them and bring that up and say, hey, look, I need you to do this client stuff because look, we're both headed to that, to you getting that new car or whatever it might be, or we know you're both headed towards you putting a down payment on that new house, or, you're sharing at that next level. That's really what I'm talking about when you can start to plan empathy and vulnerability into your employees' roadmap to keep them around. And it's a big thing as it comes to language. I think that a final piece that I'll say, and then, hopefully we can turn this into having conversation a little bit. But a final thing that I'll say is about time. And I think that so many people, clients, employees, ourselves, time is the ultimate resource, right? And everybody feels like they're strapped for time, don't have enough time. So what I think is, and what I believe we can do as owners, is we can go in and say, let's just take an example of an employee. So as we're talking about being a better leader. Hey, employee, tell me about where you're spending your time, and tell me about, and rate for me 0 to 10 the things you love doing, 10 being I love doing this, 1 being I hate doing this. And tell me of the things that you're doing, which things actually bring you joy and which do not. What are things that you love doing? Because I want to align this to go forth. And let's reallocate or let's think about how we can redo the time that you're spending right now and rework the time that you're spending with us to be more effective as it goes on, and to make sure that you're spending the time that you're, working with our company more effectively, ultimately doing more things that you want to do, which is going to help keep you around. And you go to a client, and I think so many of us sell services, but really what we're also trying to do is selling time. It's the same type of thing. So you have a conversation with a client. Hey, what are the things that you're doing right now that you're spending a lot of time on? What can we do to take these things that you're spending a lot of time on off your plate? Well, common one in agencies is they're getting a report from you, and then they have to take that report many times and then send it on to a client or send it on to their boss, right? So they have to take the numbers that you're sending. So how do you basically pitch to them, hey, look, I want to make your life easier. I think we can do this. I know that you're strapped for time. So how can we take this equation of time right now, the things that you're spending a lot on, and how can we take that off of you? And selling time as an asset. If you can give people time back and help them make more money, that's going to be, obviously, that's an incredible recipe for success in terms of agency retention. So if you can, kind of pitch that and talk about that with vulnerability and empathy, and saying look, I know that you're slammed. I am too. But what I want to do is I want to make you look great. I want to make your company as much money as possible. And I want you to have more time back and not to have to worry about it. So of the things that we're doing here, what can I do to give you more time back? Are you spending too much time on approving creatives? Is it creative reporting? What is it? Because I want to solve that for you. Because I know that's going to help you in a number of different ways. And I know that that's going to help us make sure that we're serving you to the best capacity that we possibly can. So it's really what ultimately my thesis of what I'm saying here is just changing the conversation and taking it to the next level with folks by sharing what you do and opening the door of vulnerability and saying, honestly, I'm a little nervous about this, or I do not feel confident in this, or using phrases like that, which honestly I would have shit my pants if I had said that stuff when I started my agency. I never would have said that. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of people, and most people, that are pitching against you guys right now don't say that. And so if you come forth and you say those words and you talk about things deeper and you connect with them on the human level, you will win more business and you'll keep them around for longer, and you're going to keep your employees around for longer, because that's going to make you a better leader. Right now, the ultimate thing that leaders that are succeeding are doing is using vulnerability as a strength. They're talking about things openly. They're sharing them openly. They're acting like they know that they don't have all the answers. And they're using emotional language to connect with people. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I grew up, and when my dad was overwhelmed or my mom was overwhelmed, I mean, I grew up on a farm in Wisconsin. When they were overwhelmed, they were like, "Get out of here." No. And I'm not saying that's bad. I turned out all right.
That's Midwest right there.
Get out of here.
Oh yeah.
And like, now when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I say to my 4-year-old, "I'm feeling overwhelmed. I just need a minute." And I think we can start to use this language. I know we can. And I've seen it work effectively in a number of organizations. I have clients that has 200 employees. I have a lot of people I'm coaching that have like 15 to 20 employees. And the more that they get into that meat, the more that they get into that realness, the better off we are. And the more money we make, and the longer we keep people around, honestly. And so that's really basically it. That's why I tried to make it more complicated with this presentation I made, but as I said, it was bad. And so that's essentially what I wanted to get across, and something that I've been holding a lot, because I think so much of what we do is commoditized, and you guys know this. So much of what we do is commoditized, and we're pitching against others that do the same things than us. And a lot of people win by signing up one service and then getting people onto another service and signing them, and that's great. But the question is like, how do you keep people around for the long term? Relationship building is a huge part of it. People and like clients and employees. And relationship, being with them is one way to do that. But I think taking it to that next level and sharing openly is a thing that can really be an unlock for you in 25. So I'll stop there for a minute, but that's essentially what I wanted to get across.
I love it. I have a quick question to kind of kick us off, if that's okay, Andrew.
Yeah, please.
Being vulnerable. One thing that I've kind of struggled with is like finding that deeper mission for even what we do at Hydra, right? It's like something that even Nicholas, my business partner, who's on the call as well, we chatted about this past week. Is like, sometimes this like agency space can feel so superficial and so surface level. And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, like we help grow businesses and we help generate more revenue and drive more profitability into businesses. How do you kind of like take it a layer deeper and like pull out, the impact that you're actually having on businesses like that?
I think there's two things. One is that because of the fact, just hearing what you're saying, one is, and this is a recent discovery in my own work, so this is why I share this. This isn't some freaking guru shit I figured out. Like, this is like, has been happening real time in my life, which is because of the fast pace we work in, and because of the speed at which we work, and all of the freaking things that we're doing a million times a day, most of the issue of vision is because we haven't spent the time on it. Mm. Like, you can't run a $1 million business or a $5 million business doing a visioning session once a year with a business partner. Yeah. For 2 days in Paris or wherever you are. It's useless. It won't go anywhere.
I mean, if it's in Paris, it might help a little bit.
I mean, it'll help. But my point is that you serious things take serious time, right? Or as like other leaders have said, like, hard things are hard, and I hired a business coach 2 months ago, and essentially I have been in what's called like what we named like ant mode. I've just been operating, and guess what? We built this business and we built our membership and our community to 540 people based on my freaking intuition, which is absurd. And you guys may feel like this as well. You're like, that's pretty cool. I've done really well. But the reality is now I have 540 people that are there and depending on me to help them grow. And now we need to get serious about systems. We need to get serious about how we're taking care of people. And we need to get serious about the vision. And so that's what I've been working on. And I'm talking like I've been spending 1 to 2 hours a day on this per day for like since I started the visioning a month ago. I mean, it's a lot more time. When have I spent 2 hours doing stuff? Like, unless it was client calls, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you never do that. So I think number one, that's a big part of it. I think the other thing is, excuse me. I think the other thing of how do you measure this, in your question, is what are you looking to measure? Let's just say you're looking to measure the impact that you're having.
Mhm.
Some things can't be quantified on a survey, and I've learned that a lot. You try to survey quarterly. We survey quarterly. We do an NPS survey quarterly, and that gives us a read on how we're doing, what people recommend us. But I have this, well, he's not a buddy. He's this guy I know who's actually kind of a tool, but he's like this innovation expert. This is what he claims himself. And I asked him one time, he gets paid to like speak at Harvard and shit for about innovation. Okay. And I'm like, how do you keep up with what's happening with innovation? He's like, oh, I just talk to like 10 people a week, 10 people that do innovation a week. That's it. And so in that sense, what you're saying, Josh, is like, okay, you're asking like, how do I quantify this work? How do we quantify the things that we're doing? Another thing that, you know, talk to the members, which you know that you're doing, but like talk to them deeply. What are the things? Can you help me understand what we've helped you do? Because I have all these ideas of what I think I help our community do, and some of them are true, and some of them are not true. So it's like, what are the things that we've helped you do, and getting from them and hearing from them, and then you can start to quantify and say, okay, it looks like we are really helping people solve these issues, and that's big. And so I think a lot of it is time and attention paid. Honestly, like it's not that you don't have the capacity to do it. But I used to do planning, and it was like a 2-hour meeting quarterly, and we would plan, but we were planning details. We weren't planning vision. We weren't planning really like, what are we trying to do in the world? We were just trying to execute. So it took me like a month to actually start to dream big and have a vision with my business coach versus just writing out to-dos of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, those of you that are watching this recording or on this call, you're a high performing person. And that happens. You get into action mode. You know, it's like when my wife brings me an issue, I'm like, I want to solve this problem. Well, that's like, you know, hold on. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the analogy used, like, sometimes you kind of feel like the ant on the anthill, right? And it's like you're just doing work, like you're just doing as much work as possible, and sometimes you kind of lose sight of that bigger vision that you kind of set out for. And I love that you use the word impact. We use the word impact quite a bit inside of our business and community. So yeah, man, and that's what it ties back into, like how have you been able to change other businesses, and like what has that led to, even on like their personal side, not just like their growth business, because I think sometimes we get a little clouded around just like the business successes, right? And not necessarily some of like the personal wins that come along with that.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, just to take that even a little bit further, right? Like one of the things that we can all live in together, because we're in a business community, is we can live in business successes together.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the business successes are proxy for what we're trying to do in our lives. And that's really that's another thing I'm trying to get at in terms of that conversation with employees and with clients. It's like, can you help me understand? Like, you're with a client in person. Can you help me understand, like, why are you in this job? What do you want to do? Like, I asked a client this the other day, and this dude, who is a total G, great person, he lives in the UK. He's like, yeah, I really want to own a fashion brand one day. I'm like, what? Like, I would have never known that. But that's where he orients himself. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to exit his agency so he can start a fashion brand. Different conversation. Now it's a different conversation, right?
Yeah.
Now when I show up to calls like with him on Zoom, I'm putting on a good fit. You know what I mean? We're talking about that. That's a different deal. And now we're connecting on a different level. And he just signed up for another coaching package from me. It's $5,000 in revenue in like a second, because it's a totally different deal. Not only have I helped him solve his business, but it's a business issue. It leads into like when he goes to bed at night and he's taking a deep breath, trying to go to sleep. He's like, oh yeah, Andrew told me like one thing at a time, brick by brick, right? And there's all these philosophies that we can share with one another and learn from one another. And that's like the deeper level, that sharing vulnerably with him is what brought us closer, because he's then shared vulnerably with me. So it's a thing that once you open that door, others open that door, and it's crazy what'll happen.
Absolutely, love it. All right, I'll open it up for the rest of it. Selfishly, I wanted to jump in first there, but I'll open it up for everyone else.
I think something that jumps in my mind when you're talking, Andrew, about the leading into a call with vulnerability like that is I can see doing that easily with like I'm on the phone with the founder of a company and I'm doing a discovery call. I see it being more difficult when I'm on a call that is 5 people from their team, all working together, and like they're probably going to carry it to their CMO later, like the pitch, if they like what I'm pitching. And I wonder, like, how does that work? Do you find people more resistant when they're working with, they're on a call with 5 of their teammates and they're like, I don't really want to be vulnerable with people on the call with, on my team. How do you deal with that, lead in with that?
Yeah. So you're talking about sales calls specifically?
Yeah.
Like pitching it. Yeah. So the way that I would deal with that is that in any team, there's shared vulnerabilities and there's shared things that they have that they all talk about. And they're probably not going to get to that with you, right? They're not going to surface that in a discovery call or in some sort of pitch call when there's 5 of them on the call. But what you can do is start to open that door for them and say, you talk about what you're going to do, you talk about, who you are, you talk about how you're going to help them grow. And the next thing you can say to them is, I want you to know that I'm thinking about this. Things that I think about that are really important to me in a long-term partnership are ensuring that I share with you what I'm nervous about and what I believe we need to improve on and what I believe we can be better at. And I want you to know that I'm not going to ever lie to you. I'm going to be open with you. I'm going to be vulnerable with you. And I'm going to tell you when things that we're doing or my team has done are bad. I'm not going to put up a smoke screen. I'm not going to try to hide it. And what you can always expect from me is excellent work, dedicated people, making you more money, and being vulnerable in things that I know we can do better in our partnership. And that's some on you, and that's some on me. And if you say that to them,
good. Yeah.
No one's saying that to them. No one. And if you open that door and you go to that, that's a completely different pitch than they've heard from others. Your pitch might, And so ultimately,
I get it. It makes you stand out because you're admitting you're going to make mistakes and how you're going to handle it beforehand.
Exactly. Yeah. You wear that vulnerability on your chest, right? You're like, we're going to fuck up. It's going to happen. We are not going to do what, what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell you that we did it. I'm going to save you the money. And I might refund you if we spent money incorrectly. I don't know. Okay. But you're not going to ever doubt me because I'm not going to lie to you. And I can tell you that right out of the gates. And that's a vulnerable share. That's an empathetic share. And you can say, I'm not trying to get into the warm and fuzzy feelings. I'm not trying to get into but what I am going to do is I'm going to make sure that you understand that I'm here for you, because this is a partnership.
Yeah. And that's crazy because it's something I say in our slide deck is we're not just another vendor, we're a true partner. And that's like what it is about right there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I would go. That's one of those things. It's just like, it's wild what that will do.
I love that. Awesome. What other questions we have? Joyce, I know you're on the call. I know you were excited for Andrew's talk today. Any questions? I don't know if you maybe stepped away for a second. Oh, there she is.
No, sorry, I had a client called me last minute, but they hung up. So I don't know what's going on their side, but all good. No, I was excited about this call because Andrew, I followed you for several years.
Oh wow, well thank you. I appreciate
Yes,
that.
found you through I think is it Digital Marketing Today's podcast several years
Yeah,
ago.
Todd
So
Maffin. Yeah, yeah.
yes. So no, this is actually a really good talk because we don't tap into the vulnerability side as leaders. And so it's just a good reminder. So thank you so much for sharing. But I don't have
Yeah,
any
absolutely,
questions.
absolutely. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you checking out our work and following along. And if we can ever be helpful, I'm happy to do that. Our mission in the world is to help people help agency owners and businesses have more money and have more time or both. That's what I want you to do. And help ultimately those two things, if you have, to help you achieve what you're trying to do in life. So that's really my goal, and I love getting into the weeds on stuff. So I appreciate you following along and saying that. And Todd's podcast is like a hidden gem. I feel like it's what helps me understand what the heck's going on. So I love being on with him.
Amazing. Yeah, let's open it up for a few more questions. I know we got Chris, you're still around here. Colin, Rob, any cues from your guys' side? Oh, doesn't look like it. Maybe.
I will say, so the timing of this is kind of universal comedy to me because I have a wealth manager chasing me. They think I have money for some reason. I don't know why. But they've been trying to build a relationship over the last year with me, and they had me over to their office yesterday for lunch. And they did. They had hosted a dinner several months back. We did a values card exercise, like everyone at the table. And yesterday it was a priorities thing, and they led into this like be vulnerable, be open, everyone, and that's where the power is going to come from. That's where this exercise is going to be meaningful for you and change things and help you identify some stuff. And it just like hitting home this week on being vulnerable and living in that power.
Yeah, it's funny how stuff. I mean, you want to get woo woo on stuff. It's really strange how like the universe has stuff that comes across your desk. Like I didn't ever think I would be doing on December 13th of this year a presentation about how vulnerability will make you a better leader. Like I never, but like it kept coming up because every one of these coaching calls that I was doing, like almost, I would say 90% of the issues were employee based. Hey, I've got this issue with this person. They're not doing their work. I got this issue with this person, or they're not, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, when was the last time you actually asked them about what they want to be doing? It's like, no, I haven't done that. It's like, when was the last time you shared with them what you want to do? I haven't done that as much. Because which is like, it's not to blame us or make fun of us. Like we all are so busy operating. We're all so busy in the trenches on this stuff. And so really what we need to do, back Josh to your point, right, of sitting down and planning and visioning and saying, like, an employee asked me something yesterday and I answered and I was like, honestly, I'm working through it. I don't know the answer to that right now. Like I really don't, but I'm trying to find a clarity about how we're going to deal with that. So it's interesting. But I don't want to be pitching what financial advisors are pitching. I mean, those guys are the worst. So just make sure you sign on with it before you sign on with anybody that they're fiduciary. That's all I'll say about that. Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting how that stuff comes up. But I think presentations can go a lot of different ways. We've all seen 1,000 presentations, and the only thing I ever try to get across with my presentation is something that is a little bit of a theme that can stick with people throughout the day or the weekend. That's my only goal.
It's great. Love that, man. What's up, Chris?
Hello. Sorry.
You're good,
In
brother.
the middle of meeting, distractions over here.
Any questions? Any talking points that you want to go over?
No, I mean, hey, listen, this was super valuable, and I'm actually putting together my first, I don't know, company all hands meeting for the beginning of next year. Where now
Nice.
I have like a team and systems thanks to Hydra, and like, so I'm putting that together, and I think the vulnerability and like sharing with the team is exactly like what I was looking for. Because I want to make sure I had a one-on-one yesterday with a team member, and I told them like we're setting new KPIs for team members, but also I want to share where we are trying to get to as a business. So we're working collectively with shared and common goals instead of like individually based on tasks. So now I'm just trying to formulate how to put this together into an all hands meeting to kick off the new year.
Yeah, and I encourage you, Chris. I just helped another coaching client do this, put together a big thing for his team and sharing that vision. And he was working on. He sent me the deck and all this. And it was good. It was full, a lot of good stuff. And it's actually the thing that I encourage you to do is to not think about it too much, and to just and to speak with like truth in what you're trying to do, how, why. That's going to be more valuable than trying to make it be the exact right thing and said the right way, right? I
For
think
sure.
the more that you can say that, the better off you're going to be. So that's a big one. And I think tying it together, saying in those presentations too, one of the things that we're going to do as we're setting these KPIs for you is we're also going to do work to understand what you're trying to do and the why for you, for each of you, because the more that we can help you realize your why, the better off we're all going to be. Right.
Yeah,
and
like
connecting that to showing basically, and you're trying to display that you're a vehicle for their dreams. Right. You're the one that can be like, look, I said, I want to pay each of you guys more. I want to pay the bonuses based on KPIs. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to do the best work in the world. We're freaking great at what we do. And so, but to get there, we're going to talk about work, but we also need to talk about what's in here for each of you and what you're trying to get to. And because we want to be part of that journey for you.
It's awesome.
So much of corporate stuff. And there's an article on HBR in Harvard Business Review about this like 6 months ago. In the summer issue, was basically in corporate communication in terms of employee motivation. It's so much centralized. This is what we're going to do as a company, and you all get to be a part of it. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, I can help, John Smith Incorporated make more money. But really, what I'm saying is the opposite. Like, you're doing both. You're saying, here's what we're trying to do, and then you're saying, but you're doing it through the vehicle of making sure that these people who are your employees are getting what they need so that we can all do this together.
Yeah. I used to work in those industries, Harvard being one of them, and I never want to be that. And so that's where I'm trying to blend now this business into what I never wanted it to become.
Yeah, totally. And I understand completely where you are. I understand, and that I'm the same way, right? Like, I worked in the government. Like, that's why do you think I'm an entrepreneur? I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's like way too many red tape. I gotta get out of here. Yeah. And you become a product of your environment. You want to get over it. And so I think that's a good one too, right? Like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be stodgy. I don't want to, but here's the thing is that process and agencies, and I think this is another good thing to talk to people about. Something that I've really learned this year is that process and KPIs for employees are just like boundaries with your family and your friends. It's why you don't go to Thanksgiving dinner and stay at your aunt's house for 6 hours. You set a boundary for yourself because your family's going to drive you nuts. And so, I mean, I don't know about you, but it's like, that's going to drive you crazy. So you're like, hey, I want you to know I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there for 2 hours. Okay. And then I'm going to be leaving. I got some stuff to do. You don't have to explain it. It's the same thing. It's like, here's what we're going to do. These are the processes. And we're going to do that because it's going to help us do this, or it's going to help us achieve this other thing. And so it's just the same thing. And if you explain it that way and you frame it that way, that it's a way that can help remove ambiguity from an employee or from, you know, from an employee's work and from what your relationship is with them, that's a totally different deal.
Makes total sense.
Right? Like, because nobody wants to live in ambiguity. What's the worst part about showing up for your job? You show up and you go, I don't know what I'm doing here, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. We're you know, you should know. You walk into work, here's what you're doing. Right? You walk into work, and that's great. And you're gonna kill it doing that. And if there's questions, we're gonna clarify that.
Yep. Love it.
Amazing. Well, I think, Andrew, that's a solid place to kind of wrap it.
Cool.
Any final words of wisdom before we hop here?
No, I appreciate it. If there's anything I can do, Andrew at foxwelldigital.com. You can always hit me up. Yeah, look, I appreciate it, and I'm honored by the opportunity to speak here today. And yeah, I look forward to being in touch with some of you.
Yeah, love it. Thanks, Andrew.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Well, hey, have a great rest of your weekend. Invest in a little rest and relaxation this weekend. Enjoy a little bit of time off, and yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Yeah, we'll talk soon. Thanks again, Andrew.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
See you guys. All right. Thank you, brother. That was great.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you never know sometimes when I do a freestyle if it's going to be good or it should be terrible. But it's something that something I've held in my mind a lot. So I thought about it a lot. So
yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as this like upcoming year, man, how can I best support you, and how can we collaborate more?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I think I need a